So guys, welcome back to the channel, another day and another video. In today's video we got quite a bit to talk over. Some new rulings from the government. Look like fans won't be allowed back in stadiums as soon as we thought. We've got some EFL Cup action going on in midweek which we'll be predicting today, and of course we've got a bunch more transfer rumours. So if you do going to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, get all your thoughts in the comments down below. And before we do hop into anything, a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, you can find the new OneFootball app in the top line of the description down below. Really handy app as we do head in to this new season. Now if you want to get live updates whenever a goal does go in the Championship, in the EFL Cup, or for whoever you do support, OneFootball is really handy to have for that. Keep up to date and track all the latest stats with your players, and as well you can also now watch selected UEFA Europa League and UEFA Champions League qualifying matches for free over on the app. So what's not to love? Really handy to have as we do head into this football season. I'll leave a link down below. So the first thing I thought we'd touch on in today's video, because I'd be interested to get some of your guys' perspectives on this one, was the government pausing plans for football fans to be able to return to stadiums after October 1st. Obviously, we had a few pilot events going on in the Championship last weekend with up to 1,000 fans at both the Norwich and Middlesbrough games, and it's disappointing considering that they all seem to go fairly well. Myself as North End fan, I think the first game that I was supposed to be allowed back into would have been our home game against Cardiff, and the original plan was for grounds to be up to a third full, obviously with people social distancing, but it's no longer looking like that can be the case, and recent suggestions are saying that fans won't be getting back into stadiums until possibly at least 2021 now. For fans of Championship and Premier League clubs, it's more frustrating than anything that we won't be able to get back, but this is going to have a serious knock-on effect for those clubs lower down the footballing ladder. I'd be interested to get your guys' take on this one, and also fans that actually went to a game last weekend, either at Norwich or Middlesbrough. What did you make of the whole atmosphere and things like that? Let me know down below. Before we do hop into any transfer dealings though, I thought we'd start out by going over some of my predictions for the EFL Cup action which is going on in midweek, so feel free to leave your predictions in the comments down below if your team is playing in the EFL Cup third round. Newport up against Watford. Now Newport have already knocked out Championship opposition. They knocked out Swansea in the first round, but I feel like Watford have got options in their squad. They're still tinkering and experimenting with what works best for them in this Championship season. I feel like they'll use this game as a bit of an experiment as well. Defensively, they have been very good so far. I'm going to back Watford for a 2-0 away victory in that one. West Brom against Brentford, very interesting. Now Brentford have already knocked out Premier League opposition. It was pretty much a full-strength Southampton team that they knocked out in the second round. West Brom haven't got off to the greatest of starts in the Premier League either. They've been shipping a lot of goals. I'd expect both sides to make a few changes for this one. Conor Gallagher, who's recently signed for West Brom, I'd imagine will get a run out in this game. I'm going to say that this one's going to finish 2-2, and then Brentford, they're going to win on penalties. I can see goals being scored in that one, obviously. Two of the high flyers from last season should be an interesting watch. Luton then up against Manchester United. Now, Luton have got off to an absolutely flying start in the Championship under Nathan Jones. 2 wins out of 2. Can they go ahead and beat Man United in the Cup? Now, Man United, I'm no doubt going to make changes. I think Luton will give them maybe even a good run for the money, you know. In that game against Crystal Palace, United looked awful, but I do think United will just about get through this one. I'm going to go 2-1 Man United. Fulham against Sheffield Wednesday. I'd imagine that Wednesday's full focus and attention is going to be on the league this season. They're now on -8 points. They're going to continue to try and chip away at that deficit, and so I'd imagine that their focus won't really be going on the Cup. I think that Fulham may use this one as a bit of a confidence booster. Of course, they themselves haven't got off to the best starts in the Premier League. Going to go 2-0 Fulham in that game. Millwall against Burnley. I can't see this being like a massive goal thriller, really. I think that both sides are going to be tight and compact. It's a similar sort of brand that both sides play with. You know, this game, I wouldn't be surprised if it was won or lost on the set piece. I'm going to go 1-0 Millwall in that one. Why not? Then I always fancy them. Preston up against Brighton. Brighton, I imagine, are going to make quite a few changes for this one, as will Preston as well. I'm going to say that this one's going to end as a 1-1 draw, and then Preston are going to win on penalties. I've got to be backing the boys, obviously. That's potentially for a tie up against Man United in the next round should they go through against Luton. Stoke versus Gillingham. Going to back Stoke in that one for a 1-0 home victory. Not been the highest scoring team so far this season, Stoke, but I think they're still tinkering with a few systems in terms of what's going to work best for them this season. Chelsea up against Barnsley. Barnsley have had a tough start to Championship life this season once again, haven't they? Got a bit unfortunate with the 2 red cards at the weekend, and Chelsea just have a ridiculously deep squad. I'm going to go 3-0 Chelsea in that game. Bristol City up against Aston Villa. Now, Dean Holden's got off to a flyer of a start with Bristol City. They've won both their matches so far in the league, and Bristol City are one of those sides who do like a cup run, aren't they? This one could go either way, obviously. Villa won their first game in the Premier League yesterday. I'm going to back Bristol City for it though, why not? I'm going to go 2-1. I think they've got some good rotation options. And then last of all, we have Man City against Bournemouth. Impossible one to predict. I'm going to go like 5-0 Man City or something. Even their second squad is just ridiculously strong, you know. Bournemouth know from their time in the Premier League. So do feel free to let me know in the comments down below what do you think is going to happen in these EFL Cup matches. Now, let's hop into talking about some completed deals. So Derby have been one club who have been busy, obviously. We've spoken about him quite a bit on the channel lately, but Kamil Jozwiak has completed a permanent move to Derby County. Got an assist for the Jack Marriott goal at the weekend. I'm very interested to see how he does there long term. It was just the sort of player that Derby were in need of, as was Jordan Ibe, who they've also completed the deal for. So pace in wide areas, especially in their opening fixture and against Preston in the EFL Cup, it looked to be an area where they were quite limited, really, especially without Tom Lawrence. And the drop down to the Championship was inevitable, but it's just the sort of club and environment that I think is right for Ibe at this point of his career. He's going to be working under a good manager there in Philip Koku. I think he's got some good influences in the dressing room to take after as well. I don't mind that bit of business at all, especially on the free transfer. Birmingham have been very busy in the last week or so. Obviously, Scott Hogan's return. We mentioned that one on the channel before, but I'm excited to see how he gets on now. But the big arrival here is Mikel San Jose from Athletic Bilbao. Now, this is a player with serious pedigree. He's got 7 caps for Spain. He's played his whole career at a really high level. You know, he's played in Champions League, he's played Champions League, Europa League, he's played the Euros. And I am interested to see where Karanka intends on playing him. He can either play as a defensive midfielder or he can play at centre half. I think he's been playing more and more at centre half as his career's progressed. And he was someone who I looked into, who I thought maybe was over the hill a little bit, but he's only 31 years old. It's exciting times for what Birmingham are building here under Karanka. And then we saw Middlesbrough complete a deal for striker Chuba Akpom. The deal in the end being worth around 2.75 million. Now, we all knew that Middlesbrough were after a striker in this transfer window. We've mentioned it throughout countless videos so far. They've been knocked back on quite a few targets, but this is one that they have got over the line. Now, his career in England to date hasn't been the most successful. He made a move over to Greece where he was able to find a little bit more success. Won the league there, has scored 18 goals in the 2 seasons that he spent in Greece. But he is obviously a product of the Arsenal Academy, quite a well-known name around the EFL. He's had various loan spells out to the Championship previously, to the likes of Nottingham Forest, Hull City and Brighton. But this really is the point of his career where he is looking to kick on and really make something of himself. And Brentford have completed the deal for Saman Ghoddos. Now, this is initially on a loan deal and then they have the option to make that permanent come the end of the season. Very interested to see how this one goes. Now, Ghoddos is a player who Brentford have had long-term interest in previous transfer windows. We have spoken about this one. They have now got it over the line. Now, what's interesting is you would think this would pave the way for Ben Rama to be moving on and then Ghoddos coming in as that natural replacement for him. By all accounts, they do seem to be quite similar players actually. Technically very good, a flair dribbler. This is really the reason why Brentford are the masters of the transfer market. You know, there's no doubt that Ben Rama will be moved on eventually for, you know, upwards of like 25 million. And they now have, by all accounts, a very capable replacement. Nottingham Forest completed the deal for Fulham fullback Cyrus Christie. He comes on loan for this season to come into the squad and be that replacement for Matty Cash. We did speak about if Forest would dip into this area of the squad. Obviously, they do have the likes of Carl Jenkinson and Derek were there, but with those two being injury prone, it was always going to be an issue. Obviously, formerly of Derby County, I'm interested to see how he gets on. And then finally, we saw Rotherham complete a deal for Leicester City striker George Hurst coming on loan for the season. He did get a bit of action in the game of the weekend against Millwall coming off the bench. Very highly rated though, obviously son of David Hurst. I'm interested to see how he kicks on this season at Rotherham. But guys, those were some of the completed deals which have gone through in the past 7 days. Now, without any further ado, let's hop into some transfer rumours. So start to go with Daniel Johnson. Rangers are upping the pursuit for DJ. He wasn't involved in the squad at the weekend. He missed out because of an injury, but it may be one of those where we're keeping him away until this deal gets over the line. If the recent reports coming out of Scotland are to be believed, Stephen Gerrard reportedly wants this deal done this week. It was always going to be a tough one to keep hold of DJ after the season that he's just had with less than a year left in his contract. Now, if the player is angling away for the move, we're pretty much left in the situation where we have to sell then. We'll definitely miss DJ, you know, who's our player of the year last time round, but we are fortunate for the fact that we do have several other number 10s who could come into that role. Then to a transfer story which caught everyone's eye. Max Aaron's being linked with move to Barcelona. Now, Barcelona are in search of another right back after looks like Nelson Semedo will be making his move over to Wolves. Now, Max Aaron's unbelievably talented. I got to watch him at the weekend as North End took on Norwich. Going forward, absolutely brilliant. The guy's got a massive future ahead of him. Now, the interesting part of this is what Barcelona have actually offered to Norwich here. It's understood that the clubs have been in contact and that Barcelona were offering to take him initially on a loan deal with the option to then make that permanent in the summer, but Norwich obviously want the obligation that they would go ahead and purchase him at the end of that. And there's also then talk about the £20 million fans on top of that. It'll be an interesting one to see how this develops, because Norwich are no mugs. They're not going to let any of their prize assets go for less than what they value them at. Derby County have been heavily linked with the move for Fiorentina striker Bobby Duncan. Now, recent reports are suggesting that personal terms have been agreed with the player. He's had quite the interesting career so far as well. He came up through the Liverpool Youth Academy and was a real bright spark in their youth setup. He then decided to take the risk of making the move over to Fiorentina in search of first team football, but things there haven't really materialised for the player. Derby will be hoping they'll be the club to unlock that potential. Aberdeen defender Scott McKenna looks to be on his way to Nottingham Forest. This is another position where Forest were already quite stocked up in, but definitely a different option from what they already have in that role, and probably an upgrade if he is able to adapt quite well to Championship life. The deal being worth £3 million, rising up to £5 million with potential add-ons. A strong and powerful defender who came through the ranks at Aberdeen. There has been long-term interest from Forest in the defender. Forest are one of those clubs who have been very active in this transfer window so far. It's just about making these players gel. Victor Gyökeres has been linked with a move to Swansea City. Graham Potter is said to be undecided at this point in time whether to allow him to go out on loan this season or not. He has featured for Brighton in the EFL Cup so far. He actually scored in the last round against Portsmouth, but hasn't featured for them yet in Premier League action. The striker spent last season out on loan in Germany and has actually played for the Swedish national side as well. A good finisher. Seems to be just the sort of player that Swansea are lacking at the moment. It's just a question of whether Brighton will actually allow him to go out or not. And speaking of Swansea, Andre Ayew has been linked with the move to the Premier League. West Brom being interested. Now, the link here comes from Slaven Bilic. He's previously worked with Ayew at West Ham. I believe he originally signed him for West Ham. So the manager's obviously in the mirror of the player. Last season smashed it for Swansea. I think had 23 goal contributions in the Championship. I think with Brewster no longer being there at Swansea, Ayew this season has definitely been billed up as the main man for them. With West Brom, their long-term interest has been in Colin Grant. They are in need of another striker before this window ends. I wouldn't say that Ayew is an out-and-out striker, but can certainly play that role. And with so far West Brom and Huddersfield not coming to terms on a fee for Colin Grant, this could be their backup option. So Swansea will be hoping that the Grant deal does go over the line, because if not, they could be losing a real quality player there. Charlton striker Macaulay Bonne has been linked with a move to QPR. Now, my side Preston has also been heavily linked with a move for the Charlton striker, who got into double figures last season, 11 goals in his first Championship season. Very respectable. It's obvious to see why there is the interest here. Still quite rough around the edges sort of player, but potential to mould him into something's obviously there. Now, QPR have had their latest bid turned down. Charlton are adamant that the player is not for sale. They think he's going to play a pivotal role in their rebuild this season in League One. So with Charlton's stance on it, you'd think that they would drive a really hard bargain if anyone was to get this deal over the line. And now Coventry have been the latest club to be linked to Lawrence Shankland. Now, we spoke about Lawrence Shankland quite a bit on the transfer rumour round the videos. There's been a whole host of Championship clubs linked to him over the past few years. Stoke, one club who always seems to pop up in the conversation, but it's obvious to see why there is interest there. He scored 28 goals in all competitions last season for Dundee, had a fantastic goal scoring record for them, and they are adamant that they won't let him go on the cheap. But with Coventry still looking to bolster their forward options, this would be quite the coup for a few Championship clubs, I'd say. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. So as always, if you have seen any other transfer rumours that we didn't mention in today's video, then do get them in the comments down below. We've discussed quite a bit throughout today's video, so I'm interested to get your guys' viewpoints on all of it. But as always, thank you very much for watching. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and please do stick around and subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. We're getting closer now to 30k subscribers. But apart from that, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.